Welcome to
The Curiosity of
a Child.
What episode is this? I didn't check.
47?
47. Let's have a look.
Yep. Wow, we are so professional.
It is 47. Well done.
Oh, I am
Okay.
good. Okay, anyway, let's actually start the episode.
Yeah, so we've got an interview this episode with Paul Mayze from Avid Games. He talks to us about a mobile game called Q Cards, or Cards of the Universe and Everything, which we've been playing recently. I discovered it with an ad on my phone, and we love it because it's full of lots of facts and interesting different bits and pieces. Can you tell us a bit more, Anton?
Yeah, it's basically the game for our podcast. It covers pretty much everything. Like the name suggests, it's a card game, and different cards can be put into a deck, and those decks battle other decks. And you've got power, so you want to get the strongest power, and there's lots of other things that I would recommend installing the game, and you can find out yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And we'll actually play one of their trailers now so you can get a better idea. So here we go.
For as long as he can remember, Dave's mind has been plagued with profound questions. What exactly is Hilbert's paradox of the Grand Hotel? Which is more powerful, Thor or a supernova? If you owned a quokka, would you trade it for a T-Rex? Well, Dave, today is your lucky day. Because today you'll discover Cards, the Universe and Everything. We call it Q Cards for short, and it contains almost everything from across our universe, all wrapped up neatly in a multi-award-winning card game, designed to inspire curiosity in an almost infinite number of subjects before they slug it out against one another in outrageous battles. You'll never know what you come up against. Lancelot, rockets, Capricars, constant Egyptian gods, dinosaurs, mythic beasts, whales, Thor, cats, Rembrandts, the TARDIS, sea otters, and even secret societies. I say, it's fantastic fun for all ages. There's literally nothing in the universe quite like it. Q has fixed you, Dave. Why are you still here? Cards, the Universe, and Everything. Battle anything against everything.
I think that explained it better than we did.
Only just.
Yeah. But should we go into the interview?
Yeah, into the interview.
So we are joined by Paul Mayze today, and we're very excited to be talking to him. So Paul, could you just introduce yourself, please, and just let us know a little bit about you?
Sure. So I'm Paul Mayze. I'm managing director of Avid Games, and we have produced many titles over our time since we were founded in 2012. But our latest title is what we put all of our effort and love into, which is Cards of the Universe and Everything, which of course you've just abbreviated to Q Cards. And that abbreviation is a necessary abbreviation because Cards of the Universe and Everything is just 2 characters too long to fit on the App Store and the Play Store.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Q Card still works pretty well, though, so rolls off the tongue nicely. We actually discovered the game because I'm not a big mobile gamer. I like board games and like on the console or the PC or something, but I haven't really played mobile games. You do, though, don't you, Anton? Mm-hmm. And I saw one of your adverts come up in an app. I thought, oh, wow, this sounds great. Kind of battle anything against anything. And all the facts and the history and everything in the game, which we'll cover a little bit more as we talk about into the interview. I thought, I'm going to have to download this.
Yeah.
So I played it, really enjoyed it. And then I told Anton, this is like the game of our podcast. This is awesome. So we actually played each other as well, didn't we, Anton? In the league, which is pretty terrifying.
I won.
Excellent. Well done, Anton.
Thank you.
That's how it should be. I think any self-respecting 12-year-old, you're 12 years old, right? Is that right?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I think at that age you should definitely be beating your dad at mobile games. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, first of all, it was really exciting. I hadn't heard about your podcast prior to you sort of getting in touch, and wow, what a podcast! The range is so much like what we're trying to do, and the sort of the spirit of curiosity. That was, curiosity and community were the two kind of sort of words that we put on our initial pitch slide going back whatever 4.5 years. So that's what we want to be about, because curiosity. We've won education awards, and we're slightly embarrassed about winning education awards, because I think education is kind of a teacher-pupil thing. It's like you almost sort of telling someone what's what, whereas curiosity is kind of all about, discovering stuff together. So, which is absolutely what your podcast is about. So, yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, it's a self-discovery, isn't it? With the curiosity as well, and kind of being driven yourself to learn and understand or discover new things.
Exactly that, and you go wherever your curiosity leads you as well. Whereas education is sort of sit down, well, we tell you everything about maths. Curiosity is like, oh, actually, reading about potatoes has made me want to find out more about South America or whatever. So
yeah, definitely. So you've mentioned education there. So what was the your inspiration for the game and coming up with the idea? Because I did a little bit of background research, and it looked like there were other trading card games that you did before for different IPs, but this is your own creation this time.
Yeah, so we came at trading card games from the trading card angle, as opposed to from the games angle. A lot of people make games and then they make a trading card game. Well, we were doing trading cards for properties like NFL and NBA and Discovery Channel and Formula One, Valiant Comics. So we'd been doing trading cards on lots of different topics. And then when we had the opportunity to kind of create our own IP, we thought, okay, what about if we just brought real world topics to an area that's kind of dominated by sort of fantasy, Hearthstone, Gwent, and so on. And was like, well, which real world topics? And we thought, well, why restrict it? Why not just do everything? And part of that, so that's one part of the inspiration, was the fact that we'd already been doing these different trading cards. And the other came from, my son is actually 1 year older than Anton, and he was sort of 7 years old when we were first kind of kicking around the idea, and he was hooked on Pokemon, knew 800 and whatever Pokemon, and knew every evolution of them, how much candy needed to evolve, and their regions and their shinies and their load of stuff I don't understand, but I know the words for. And I just used to think, that is amazing. You've memorized all this. It's completely useless. I mean, of course, it's not useless. It's great to have sort of fantastical, imaginative things. But we did kind of think, what if we could harness that ability to just memorize tons of stuff, but actually apply it to real world stuff? So that was the other side of the inspiration.
Like some of the cards in the game. So one of my favorite ones is is it Norse mythology, the Hell card? So if I'm losing, if I've lost 2, I get plus 55 on all my other cards. And reading the back of that, it's talking about Hel being the daughter of Loki, and then Odin then gave her the ability to control the dead, I think it is. So you got a theme from the card is also in the game, because it's almost like you've been defeated in the game, but then you're taking that inspiration into the card itself, which is what I really like, that interplay. And that's not just facts, you're actually utilizing some of the real world sort of meanings in the game. Yeah,
that's absolutely what we set out to do. And sometimes it's sort of easier than others. I mean, like, for example, when we first sort of started doing dinosaurs, and we kind of go, all right, the carnivores, they just need to kind of go in with brute strength. They should just kill all your opponent's cards. Just really sort of quite basic abilities. That was a sort of a deliberate decision. But we've evolved it. Some get intensely kind of complex. I don't know if you've seen the card Rorschach test. So it has 3 different abilities depending on whether your card has is a bat or a butterfly or I think a dragon. Can't remember which 3 things it is, but it's basically your interpretations of a Rorschach test are dictate the ability that plays out. So that's very thematic. And then we have some which are not remotely sort of educational in nature. So if you play tornadoes with a shark, you get a Sharknado ability.
Yeah, I like that.
Because why not? So we always kind of wanted to, kind of do the thematic, interesting kind of knowledge-based stuff, and also a bunch of silly stuff as well. The Hail Caesar combo is another favorite. So we have if you play Hail and Caesar, Julius Caesar, you get Hail Caesar, and this picture of a Caesar salad comes up. It's very stupid. So,
It's good though.
There's that side to the game.
Something we like is the humour in there as well. It makes us a bit like QI, isn't it, Anton? I think as well, where it's definitely feel some kind of similar vibes coming from your game.
Yeah. QI is kind of our holy grail. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been described as QI the video game. So I think there's much worse things to be called than that.
No, that's really good. So in terms of building a game, then, what sort of? Mm-hmm. I mean, how big is your team, and what kind of challenges or what sort of processes do you go through in terms of designing and creating like the structure around it, the rules and different bits and pieces?
Yeah, so we're a team of 20 now, which is the biggest we've been now, and it's a lot of hard work. So we have a policy of hiring when it hurts, because you wait until you really, really need to make that hire. And that's not a cost issue. That's just because each person that you add to the team makes the team sort of exponentially more complex. There's more communication needs to happen. There's more interrelationships. So it's always a risky thing. So you have to put a lot of effort into finding the right person. And so you don't want to just kind of, certain startups almost by necessity have to sort of pile on more and more staff. We want to grow as sort of slowly and safely as possible. So we've got a team of 20 right now. I've worked in the games industry for about 20 years, and what the processes that we follow are not typical of the games industry. Okay. I do think that there are sort of there is less of a typical model, because games have sort of fractured between console and PC and mobile, and then there's sort of free to play and sort of paid games, and they all have sort of different requirements. The big thing for us was right from the outset, we wanted to kind of play with the idea of how you should design games, and we thought if we are going to cover everything, we have the sort of opportunity to have continually shifting sands, so that almost every day, certainly every week, there's almost a new challenge to get your head around, and there's no way that you'll be able to create the perfect deck for any given week before it's time to move on to the next one. But the challenge is doing what you can, and so there's a huge onus. Live ops, which I was thinking other companies, live ops kind of run these are our sales promotions and these are our sort of offers and events. But live ops encapsulates the actual creation of cards as well within Avid Games, which I think is quite unique. So they also run the game design aspect, which is usually sort of a separate discipline. Okay. And game designers sort of sit in a ivory tower thinking great design thoughts, and live ops are kind of there sort of running the promos, but we've smudged those together.
I think so that's quite interesting. That sounds like you've got quite a close team then, in how there's that intermeshing of everybody. Maybe a piece that's inspired by some of the game as well, in that it is everything against anything. Those thoughts and ideas all coming together with the people as well in the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really something which we've fostered is the idea that a good idea for the game can come from absolutely anywhere, and that has absolutely been the case. Everyone in the team has had significant input into different aspects of the game, and also different aspects of our marketing as well. Ideas for ads have come from every corner of the business as well. So, and I think that really helps. It helps us all work together. Nothing is siloed off. We're too small. At 20 staff, you don't want to be developing silos when you're that side.
Yeah, definitely.
But there's a lovely energy in the team.
That's good. Because I'm a developer, not of games, just of web stuff. So I know that maybe it can be quite hard for people to understand the technical issues or technical problems that a development team might be having. So particularly if you are really in those silos, It can be if you've got the live ops team, then they're going to be, if they can't understand or appreciate what the development team are doing, because there's that separation there, you could see that leading to problems, particularly with a game. Because I can't imagine what it is like to build one, because if you've got a bug or a change that you need to do, making sure that you're rolling it out through the app stores and keeping everything in sync and consistent, there must be so many kind of technical hurdles there that need to be overcome.
Yes. Yes, is the short answer to that. Yeah, there really are, and I think we've got a team sort of all kind of, there's a lot of collaboration and mutual support. It does not stop us getting it very, very wrong at times, and we had a nightmare period last year. I think we were about sort of 6 weeks, probably just around late summer, where we put one build out and it had a couple of really sort of angry bugs, the kind that cause problems for the whole player base. And so we quickly got out a fix for those, but that fix created another couple of bugs, and it was basically 5 more releases on, and sort of 6 weeks later that we finally had kind of got back to the state that we wanted to be in with the first release. So we don't avoid those technical hitters, however well we collaborate. It's still, they still come along and get us.
Yeah, that's always going to happen. It's a nature of the business, I think, because
it is.
It's complicated, it's complex, and
it used to be. I mean, you may on your sort of research travels in the past, you may have come across E.T. the video game. Notoriously in the 80s, the E.T. video game was put out, and it was actually impossible to finish.
Yeah.
And so millions of these kind of ended up in a legendary sort of landfill somewhere in Mexico, with these cartridges, because you literally couldn't get to the end. So I'm glad that we are where we are now, where you can put something out and go, that's a bug, we'll fix it next week, as opposed to we've spent tens of millions of pounds.
Yes,
exactly.
So as well as technical issues that you're dealing with, there's going to be like balance issues, because what deck have you been playing recently, Anton?
8 Immortals. Kind of feels like cheating.
No,
I play that.
no, 8 Immortals are the bane of my life. Yes. So we were so excited about 8 Immortals because the purpose of 8 Immortals, and this is going to be very interesting for anyone who's listening to this podcast and hasn't come across Q. I better give a bit of context.
Okay.
So the 8 Immortals are from a Chinese Folklore collection, and these are 8 cards that you put into your deck, and they all kind of buff or make each other stronger. So by having all 8 in your deck, you have a very strong deck. And we introduced these as a way to for players who weren't pay to play, so they're not sort of spending money to get sort of access to lots of limited cards early on, but so for a way for them for earlier players to kind of build a very strong deck. And I guess we were successful in that.
Yes.
But the problem is that because it's 8 cards and that's nearly half of your deck, it's very easy to spot when someone's playing an 8 Immortals deck, because half of the cards are the 8 Immortals. And so we've had a lot of complaints about, not so much about I'm losing to 8 Immortals, so much as the lack of variety, because so many people started playing 8 Immortals. So first up, we let that run for a couple of months, because you have to try and avoid doing knee-jerk reactions and sort of saying, "Oh, people are unhappy. Let's nerf it." But we did in the end have to nerf 8 Immortals a little bit. So sorry about that, Anton. I'm sorry if you were already playing 8 Immortals at the time and we sort of took away some of the power. But what we want to do now, and we're looking forward to in the next few weeks, you'll see this. We're releasing a new set of cards, a number of new cards, I should say, not a set, that are designed to create to help new players create more viable decks with existing basic collections that aren't already seeing a lot of play. We think people will be really excited about that.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Because I always like to try and do a slightly themed deck, because each week you have your different themes where you get cards having bonus power. So I like to try and build around that if I can, because I like to explore the different cards and get an understanding there. So it sounds like you're catering to that, because there's was it over 3,000 cards in the game now? I think, is it?
There are, yeah. And we've sort of, people have said, when are you going to stop? And there's actually kind of no reason to. What we don't want to do is get into something that in video games is called power creep, where basically in order to keep kind of getting people chasing after the new cards, you have to always make them a little bit more powerful than all the cards that went before. We got into that trap, and we kind of realized, hang on, this isn't really healthy. If we do want new cards to be exciting for sure, but the way we're trying to offset that is by having either those new cards or changing sort of existing cards to make pre-existing cards more powerful. So we kind of, it's trying to sort of lift up cards that may have been released sort of 3 years ago, collections that have been almost forgotten about, sort of bringing them back just with sort of a couple of changes to other cards. So we're trying to, in an ideal world, all 3,000 cards would all be viable in all decks, but that's never going to happen. Nice. But we do what we can.
Yes, there's such a lot to balance there. I can't imagine the process there. It was like the Atomors, because maybe that was a bit too successful. But then just so many challenges, and thinking, okay, let's bring in some more cards, a new theme. Obviously, you want people to pick it up, so it's got to look kind of interesting to them. But yeah, keeping all of those old cards viable, like you're saying, it's a big balancing act.
And there's also there's a balancing act. There's a challenge that comes from the way that the world is kind of categorized or broken up itself. That we're not going to. I think people have sort of said, that Greek mythology has got too many cards in it. Well, Greek mythology, first of all, everyone loves Greek mythology, so why not? But also, you're going to sort of struggle to get as many exciting cards for a broad player base from some other topics. So riding the waves, yes, there are going to be some people who would love to see 60 different sort of variations and ships, but that's not sort of where most of our sort of player base is. So we have to kind of take that sort of thing into account. How big is the collection going to be? And of course, when you first release cards from a collection, you might release 3 cards. Now, if you make those 3 cards sort of super exciting themselves, then when that collection grows even further, it's going to be overpowered. So we kind of have to try and sort of plan ahead. Where are we going with this collection? And that is really not easy. And it's not a science. I wish I could say that we just got out our spreadsheets and typed in some numbers and it all came out. It's very much a bit of science, a bit of art, and quite a bit of playtesting as well.
Yes. So with the different collections then, do you have a sort of global player community as well? So do you have certain countries where maybe you're surprised by how many people are playing it there? And is there an appeal to make collections to suit them? Or
Well, we set out our stall right at the start. Really, we said, look, we need to acknowledge that there's kind of a political kind of element. It's hard to just in the act of choosing, in the act of curating, saying, right, this is about everything, but out of everything, we've chosen to do this, this, and this. We realize that in itself is is almost a political statement. So we said, well, okay, well, who are we as a team? What do we sort of lean towards? And there's sort of a general agreement that we are progressive lean. So instead of just sort of saying we were going to launch a sort of an American president's collection really sort of early on, we're like, well, hang on a minute, we're going to have a lot of stale, male, pale cards. Is this really what we want to do?
Yeah.
And we're not, we've got no aversion to doing US presidents. We didn't want to kind of come straight out the gate with that. So we've got, for example, in sort of Pioneers of Science, we tried to, there are historically more male scientists that we've sort of heard about, but we try and make sure that we find, there's sort of female scientists and scientists from other cultures, other races. So it's not just all, sort of the white scientists that, as English people, we've typically sort of had taught to us in school. So we've tried to kind of broaden our range like that, and partly as a result of that, I think, is that we've ended up with this really pretty global appeal. I mean, we have players in, I think we've only got about sort of 10 countries in the world who haven't had a Q player, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, we're proud of that, but at the same time, localizing a game is very hard, and with enough copy to, well, I think last time we did a word count, it was 2 Great Expectations worth of copy. So and that was about 6 months ago. So it was probably a war and peace by. That's a lot of sort of very bespoke language to translate, and then you have to translate the abilities as well. So we've stuck with English for now. And unfortunately, because we've got a global audience and we're in the English language, we do get quite a few people giving us 1-star reviews and saying, why is this not in Brazilian Portuguese or Spanish? And we totally understand those people, but we're 20 people and we haven't figured out a way to localize efficiently yet.
Yeah, that's such a big job if you want to do that, particularly as if you've got some jokes and things on the cards as well. It's not even just a direct translation. You'd have to find something applicable for the language it's going into.
That's it. It's not straight facts. Yeah.
I think when the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, when that was translated into French, because you got Ford Prefect as one of the main characters, the person translating it, they made sure they chose a suitably French car to say that it works properly in that language.
Yeah, that never occurred to me. You're absolutely right. Yeah, because the joke is, the car model that he was, he decided to name himself after. So yeah, that's the kind of, if you take Ford Prefect and multiply it by 3,500 cards, and then the abilities as well. If we localize all of the abilities on the cards, that's the most dangerous thing as far as I'm concerned, because you get one word in the wrong place and it changes your expectation of how that card will play. And then our customer service gets inundated with foreign language complaints, which we just aren't equipped to handle. So there's a lot of kind of, a lot of logistics to be considered when it comes to localizing, which we're just starting to grapple with now.
Yeah, I hadn't actually thought of that. When you're explaining logic in a very tight space, you got to be very, very precise with your language and your wording.
It's already been through a couple of reviews in English because, we used to have cards. Was it cards in hand and in play? People, were not sure, whether in hand meant the ones that were actually, sort of on the playing board, or whether it was only the ones that were remaining in hand. And I'm trying to remember what we called the ones which we now say wherever they are. But I think we said the cards that were in your deck.
Yeah. So yeah. I remember when I first started playing, and it said a card can be, and it permanently gets +5 or something. I thought, is that forever? But then I realized it's just within the context of one match. I thought, oh wow, is my card going to get ruined?
Yeah, with that one, we did have the discussion internally. It's like, people are going to think this is forever, and it's like, yeah, they'll figure it out after like one game. So it's kind of, we're going to have to make certain compromises there. Yeah.
What's the process of making a card from like the idea to stats and then the image and stuff? So
let me see if I can get this in the right order. Alison, who is our head of live ops, she'll kill me if I get this wrong. So first of all, there's the overall ideation for cards. So coming up with what cards should we choose? Because as we've established, there's a lot of everything around. And we actually, so I know that people in our community who sort of post in suggestions forums, post ideas on Twitter, on Facebook, I'm sure they all think that that's where good ideas go to die. But actually, we put all of those into a spreadsheet or into Airtable, which is like our Excel. And so they're stored. And for what it's worth, internally, we have a content suggestions channel in our Slack, which in the evenings and weekends, whenever someone kind of goes, oh, look, I just saw this bird, I'm going to put that in. And so we keep adding suggestions as well, which also don't get picked up a lot of the time. But what happens is the live ops team come up with ideas for themes. But the themes actually kind of come first. So it's like, well, what would be something that would kind of tie a week together, which sounds kind of, cool and fun, but also is something to hang off a lot of card ideas. So, like An Eye for an Eye, or we've got World in Miniature. That's coming up. So, spoiler alert. So it's kind of coming up with these with these ideas that live ops team know they'll be able to come up with enough cards that would kind of fit that theme. So then they go away and kind of come up with the headline cards. Which cards are going to be sort of really exciting to kind of go in that collection. And then they'll go to the sort of Airtable to kind of look, okay, right, what suggestions have people come up with that would also fit? And so that's how then we have a schedule. And I think we get most excited about things like, sort of spotlight packs. So it's kind of, cards which have like 4 cards which all kind of relate to each other in some way. Those are usually quite fun. And then on special days as well, like Tolkien Day, and you kind of come up with like, okay, what things can we do that will tie in with Tolkien? So then you've got a sort of schedule which everyone's agreed on. Then the sort of the images are sourced kind of independently of the abilities. And we will put the schedule out to Wendy, who is our sort of lead copywriter, does most of the copy for the cards. Probably sort of 70 to 80% of all of our cards are written by Wendy now. We've lots of different people internally have had goes at writing cards at different times, so the tone sometimes varies quite a bit. So the copy and the image and the abilities are all being worked on sort of independently. Sometimes the stats are, closely related to, okay, right, we need to think about, how this works with the abilities, what is the kind of the maximum power that this card's going to generate going to be, how specific is it, how sort of tight is the sort of the trigger condition. Because if a card is going to buff one other card on the turn it's played only, and you need to be losing the round for that to happen, you can afford to make that much more powerful. If a card is going to be buffing all of the cards in your deck, regardless of collection, and it happens as soon as you draw the card, then you probably want to make that, and it's permanent, then you want to make that a +1, So we have a sort of a set of guidelines. It's literally a couple of pages long, but it's the guidelines for sort of how to go about creating abilities. And very often the stats will tie into that. Sometimes, and hopefully you will have spotted this on some cards, sometimes the stats, we just go for a bit of fun and we make them kind of numerologically appropriate for the card that you're playing. So I believe pi is 314. It's that kind of thing. So I don't know if we're entertaining our players with that, but we're certainly entertaining ourselves. And, that matters too, right? So I think that's pretty much how. And then it goes into probably the most important process of all, QA. So at the point where our QA team sort of start playing these cards and check out, have we just made something that's going to break the game because it's ridiculously powerful, or is it just right?
Do you have a favorite card or favorite card idea?
Sorry, we recently asked this internally, my favorite card. In fact, we joked about it on April Fool's Day. My favorite card, which is the Afghan rice terraces, and this is because it was such a ridiculous card to put in our. We've got everything to go at, and we had rice terraces in our first 100 cards in the game.
Okay.
Which was it was a little nod to some work that we'd done with Discovery a few years ago, where Rice Terraces was also a card. And let's bring that back. So it's not my favorite card, but I have sort of an affection for it. Obviously, completely useless and wouldn't put it in any deck currently. watch this space. I suppose dugong was one of my most one of the first facts that I kind of thought that's a brilliant fact. That people should. It was kind of so with the dugong when we found this, we read up about it. We were like, that's how we're going to differentiate ourselves from your typical factoid. Instead of saying something is 1.5 meters long and it weighs X kilograms, which no one ever cared about ever, unless it's like the biggest, heaviest thing.
Mm-hmm.
With the dugong, we found out that it's the inspiration for mermaids, because dugongs kind of sit on the shore looking like they've got their legs sort of crossed and a fin at the end, and they have these kind of breasts basically, and so sailors used to think that dugongs were mermaids, and that's how the origin of that myth kind of came about. So I have nostalgic sort of associations with cards, things that either mean a lot because of the journey we've come on as a company, or in dugong, things that actually kind of helped us set out our stall for the kind of game we were going to be. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'd love Planet X, but I haven't managed to pull one yet. So, I suppose especially having run free for 3.5 years, and nearly getting on for 4. You end up with kind of a lot of cards that were favorites at different times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my favourite things about the game is trading and also building up your collection to fuse different cards and stuff like that. Where did that idea come from? Obviously the trading from previous card games, but what about the fusion?
Well, you're absolutely right. The trading was kind of like so Avid Games is actually the trading name for a company called The Trade, which far too many people got confused with like share trading companies. So we're like, no, we're a games company. So that's why we changed it. But yeah, trading was the trading part of the game is actually the most complex, but it was built over years and turned into something really robust. And so we thought, well, we can't keep that out of the game. So our game has trading in, which sounds lovely and nice and innocuous, but it is a nightmare for us as developers to balance an economy around, because anyone who makes an account can trade with anyone. They can trade with their friends. They can just gift all their cards if they want to sort of move on to do something else, like they ever would. And so economically speaking, it's very difficult to manage, and there is a reason why almost no other games do this. So games such as FIFA have card trading, or what looks like card trading, but actually you put in the card onto an open market where it finds its natural value. But with us, anyone can trade with anyone they like. I'm sure the two of you have traded cards between yourselves.
Yeah.
And and you can do that, and you can make a lopsided trade. There's no, you want to be generous one day or not generous. Anton, don't give your dad any edges. Then that's up to you. And that is very difficult to manage. And a lot of our time goes into trying to sort of tweak the sort of the setup around trading to make that work. But one of the things that makes trading great, of course, is when you pull duplicate cards, which even with 3,500 cards, people get to duplicates quite early on. I mean, I just recently restarted the game as a free-to-play player, and I was getting duplicates by day 2. And think, really? How's that happening? But you always know when you get a duplicate that you can trade it with someone else. But we also know that not everyone likes to trade. There's almost an element of, I'm interacting with other human beings. This is actually just my me time, or the fear of getting ripped off or whatever it may be. Not everyone trades. So we wanted people to have things that they could do with their duplicates, even if they couldn't trade them. And that was how fusing and crafting came about. Fusing was kind of, we felt initially what we wanted to do was have fusing be sort of all thematically really accurate, but instead we just kind of said, okay, let's just nominate the 4 cards that you use to collect to make this new one. And then crafting, we made crafting so that you can sort of add any sort of set of 9 cards, and you'll get, if you selected your cards wisely, you should get a card that is sort of a level of rarity up from the ones that you've crafted with. But we got really excited with another thing we could do with crafting, and I don't know if you've come across this yet, but we every so often we release a craftable card, and alongside that we kind of release a kind of a treasure hunt. So it's a set of clues which are really almost nightmarishly difficult unless you're acting as a community. And so on Reddit and on Discord and on Facebook, players kind of all pile into the crafting, and they all share their theories as to what the cards are going to be that are involved. And then once it's solved, people post the answer online, and you never have to think about it again. But it's just kind of fun to go through a puzzle with the community and have them all sort of solve it together. They get a real buzz out of it, as do we. Does that answer your question, Anton? I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, good answer.
Just want to check. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, good.
That brings me on to another thought with to keep players interested in the game. So do these little meta games like the trading and the treasure hunts and everything, is that also part of your idea, that if you have these other features, it encourages people to keep coming back?
To be honest, it's more about, you can't keep our, the people we have on our team they're just brilliant. They love gaming, and they'll come up with crazy ideas. So Emma came up with the last sort of crafting set, which was a series of Instagram posts about breakfast, which then thematically, so then it was the letters of breakfast that gave the clues to the first letters of all the cards that were being used in it. I can't even remember what the actual card was in the end, but it was only tangentially related to breakfast, let's put it that way. And she kind of came up with that off her own back, and then Toby came up with the brilliant cicada code card, which actually only has hexadecimal on the front of the card instead of an ability. And players have to kind of figure out, and they can still do that now, you have to figure out sort of how do I crack this code? And if you can crack the code, if you can figure out how it's done, then you get a whole bunch of free coins as well.
Oh, nice.
These were not designed because we were thinking how best to engage our players. They were designed because you just couldn't stop Emma and Toby from coming up with these ideas. So
that's the best way.
And a long way that continue. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
fantastic. Actually, the community, I've dipped into the Discord. I haven't fully embraced it yet because I haven't had the chance, but I've been on there. Yeah. I might have asked what people thought of the 8 Immortals on there just to see if it was just me. Sorry about that.
Well, you had to pick the one question where, well, I'm sure you got a lot of support. But I mean, I think they're called the 8 Immos on there. I think they're kind of, or just Immo decks is kind of how they've been phrased. Then generally speaking, we dip into all of our communities, but Discord is probably the easiest one for us to kind of quickly gauge sort of a reaction or whatever. And they're actually, the Discord community is insanely friendly. I mean, it's just a really, really supportive community. I was actually at a careers fair yesterday, talking about careers in games, and one of the students came up to me, and he actually he recently got Q, and he said, have you got any tips for me? I was like, well, if you're not already on the Discord, get on the Discord and just ask for help. You'll be amazed at how how supportive they are, which is not what I expected. Setting up a sort of an online community, I did expect, because I've got experience with this in the past, I expected it to be a lot more trolly than it is. It's actually a really friendly bunch. Trade chat's scary. That's that's very hard to follow what's going on in trade chat, but no, it's a good community.
Yeah. From what little I have been in the Discord, I need to go more. And you, Anton? You need to get in the Discord. It seems like a really, really good community, and because you've got the off-topic chats as well, where it's just people just because of the nature of the game, they're curious, interesting people with lots to say. I think it's really good.
Yeah, and you go through card suggestions in there, and you think, oh wow,
Mm.
I think the community is very often coming up with sort of better ideas than we'd be able to come up with, because that's of course the idea of, I suppose, crowdsourcing is you get sufficient people, you're going to come up with more ideas. So yeah, it's a good community.
Going back to the game for a little bit, because it's supported by ads, which I don't mind, and it doesn't feel like play to win either. It feels fair, and I like the way the leagues work, that you don't just fall down and get so demoralised. You reach a level and then you stay there. So in terms of that side of the business of the game, obviously the ads are important, and yeah, how does that work with them? Anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, well, so the ads are important, but less for what you might think. You might think that they're a big sort of revenue generator for us. They aren't. Ads make up less than 10% of our revenues currently, but the ads are very important for us because of the friction. So as I mentioned, you can trade with anyone, and you can use the game to find people with the card that you're looking for. We really make trading very, very easy. If you were collecting Pokemon cards, finding someone with the exact card that you're looking for is a very difficult thing to do. And the place you will find it is on eBay, where they'll charge you money for it.
Yeah.
But we allow all of that sort of to be done really easily within the app. So if everyone could just trade all the time with absolutely zero friction, it would, well, I don't think we'd be here still. So we have to kind of have some degree of friction, and ads, people get five trades with no ads every day with the trade tokens, and then they have to watch ads for further trade tokens, and everyone seems to be happy with that. And it's a similar thing with the rewards after games. You watch an ad and you can double the gems that you get from post game, and everyone seems to be happy with that as well. What we've really tried to resist is having ads that you can't avoid. And when I play the game, I never watch ads. I don't, no ads ever get sort of shoved in my face like, you're going to watch this ad, which you get with a lot of games now. We may adjust that in time, but not for people who kind of, if they've been playing for a long while and they're not spending any money in the game, then we think it might be reasonable to kind of have the occasional ad which is not skippable. But that's a discussion that we're having. We've been so reluctant to kind of go down that road because I think we're one of the lesser ad-supported games out there. In fact, I know we are.
Yeah. No, that all makes perfect sense to me, because I think there's a tendency online where people expect things to be totally free, but then they forget that there is a business behind it, and like server costs and hosting and everything that you're going to be dealing with, and that's all there.
I mean, sometimes it's hard not to feel a little bit exasperated sometimes when people write to you and they're angry because they haven't been able to get the card that they want, and they have been playing free to play for months, and you think this is like Starbucks just giving you a free coffee every day, and then you just one day they say, I'm sorry, no, I'll have to charge for your coffee now, and it's like, what? How dare you? You would, that would be ridiculous. Everyone knows you have to pay for stuff in the world. We really try and make sure that free to play is an option, but it's we are a business, and
exactly.
We're a business driven by our love of video games first and foremost, but we need to continue going. That's in everyone's best interest.
I think we've got a couple of card ideas.
I'm all ears.
That's how
Right, I'm getting notepad out.
Because we're in Guernsey, so we were thinking a Guernsey theme here.
Actually, interesting fact, my first pack that I ever opened in the game, I got a Guernsey double from, so that was...
Guernsey double, I was going to say, we've got a Guernsey card. Excellent.
A Guernsey cow?
So we've got more Guernsey themed cards.
Yep.
Yeah, because Guernsey cows actually have probably the best milk of any cow in the world.
There we go. So give a milk buff.
Margaret Ann Neve. She lived to 110 and I think was the first woman to live through 3 different centuries.
That's a great one.
Yeah, so she's there's some great pictures of her on Wikipedia actually. So if you can use Creative Commons images. And we've got an episode about her if you need to know more facts as well.
Okay, right, excellent. That's brilliant. Yeah, I think we may have a theme coming up, which is a sort of, long longevity kind of theme coming up.
Nice.
So you're in the kind of the Methuselah type vein. So that would be a good addition for that. Yeah. And you were thinking that Margaret and Eve could work with
work a little bit like Caviar, the card, where it sort of gets more powerful over time to show you, I guess, the aging.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense. Yeah. And did you have a third card?
Yeah, let's do one more, mate.
You can pick one, actually.
Oh, actually, I'd quite like Warren Delarue. He was a local scientist who founded the Royal Institution of Chemistry, and he also designed the first ever apparatus designed specifically for photographing the sun.
Oh, wow. That's amazing, yeah.
So, and he also photographed an eclipse in 1860 and discovered that the corona is part of the sun and not the moon. So it'd work quite well with an eclipse card or the sun or the moon or something. Wow. It can be nicely. I can send you some details.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we already have those kind of buffing each other, and that's always nice. I really like three-way combos. I think they're really fun in the game. But we first did that with the pyramids and trigonometry in the Louvre. Was our first sort of three-way combo.
Yeah,
and I can see that working. Those, they're great ideas. So Warren Delarue and Margaret and Eve, they're both Guernsey locals, were they?
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks a lot for those.
No problem.
I mean, what happens is these ideas will go into the live ops team, and it will make absolutely no difference, however much I am angling for it. And here is so. We have our lead investors. So we had investors before I even joined the company. And our lead investor, they have a director called Nigel, who's from Sheffield. And he, being from Sheffield, what card would you like to get in the game? And he wants to get Henderson's Relish in the game, which I'm not sure if you've come across it, but Henderson's Relish is effectively, it's like Liam Perrin's, but it's specific to Sheffield. It's made in Sheffield, and it's actually got kind of a cult following around the world now.
Yeah.
And we really want to get Henderson's Relish. We have still not found the opportunity for Henderson's Relish to go in, and that's from our lead investor. So that's just a kind of a caveat that the live ops team, they dance to their own tune. But I will absolutely put those three suggestions in. We get a lot of people still asking for a collection about vegetables, which the live ops team are resisting furiously, probably because they think vegetables sound kind of boring. But as you found in your latest podcast about potatoes, vegetables are pretty important things, right?
A lot of history there. All spices might be another option. Maybe a little bit more interested in vegetables.
Yes. Herbs and spices is a whole, So you can see how there's a lot of everything still to go, isn't there?
But then I'm already thinking of links there. You got the spices here, you got global trade, so you could have explorers or people in there, or some of the ships. You'd have also got, say, Greek mythology or something where some of the spices would be used, or going into the occult cards for magic. I mean, that's what's so fun about the game is all these things are linked, and because you get the combos and the pairing and the facts on there, that's what makes it so engaging.
Yeah, I mean, we made we decided probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago to start adding, because sometimes there'd be an ability which would be thematic, but we also thought, wouldn't it be great if we could also have this side ability? So I think Christmas Truce was the first one, but we keep getting people asking why do I get a buff when I play Supermassive Black Hole with Cydonia? And of course, anyone who is a fan of Muse, the band, will know that Supermassive Black Hole and Knights of Cydonia were both on their Black Holes and Revelations album. Anyone who doesn't know Muse is thinking, what the hell have you done that for? But, there we go.
Yeah, so, I love that.
For people who are Muse fans, it's a lovely surprise, Yeah.
Brilliant. So just a couple more things. What are your future plans for the game then?
So so I've got a terrible track record of going off script when I do sort of any interviews, which causes headaches for everyone, including me. So I won't be drawn too much. I mean, we really want to put a lot of focus on deck building in for the next kind of sort of 6 to 9 months. We've got a whole sort of planned release. So four phases of deck building. The first one is going to go live imminently, as in like within the next week or so. And the reason for that is because really, if you're going to enjoy Q, you have to enjoy deck building. There's it is so key to, thinking about, well, which cards am I going to try and put together. And at the moment, deck building it can be a little bit alienating for new players. It's you just see a thin sliver of the card, you don't know what the cards are. So we've changed our approach to that, and where we want to take that is that people can share decks, and you can use people can just send a code, and you can just enter that code, and the deck will be there, even if you don't have all the cards. They're just grayed out, so you can make incomplete decks, which you can't do at the moment. And then we want to work our way towards a kind of a deck wizard, so that if you choose any card from your collection to start a deck, it'll say, have you considered these cards which will buff this card, or other cards that this card will play well with, and it will kind of give you a different sort of set of suggestions for every card that you can it will basically generate filters automatically for you, so that building a deck that hangs together takes a bit less exploration and effort than it does at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant.
So that's probably our biggest thing for this year, is deck building. And then in the longer term, well, we want to make these cards usable, a bit like Pokemon, actually. So you think about Pokemon, you kind of you have Pokemon Go, and you have Pokemon the trading card game, and you have Pokemon, the Switch versions of kind of the RPG. And we want these cards to actually be usable in lots of different games. So we actually wanted to be able to say, I've collected these cards, and now I can use that same collection. So this bit is different to Pokemon. Using the same collection, playing it in different kind of game scenarios. And we've got some pretty cool ideas for that. But they're further down the line.
Sounds very exciting. Cool. Something to look forward to, Anton?
Mm-hmm. Excited.
Brilliant. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say or plug or promote?
No, I've just really enjoyed being asked along, and to be honest, kind of as I think I've sort of hinted, just having the sort of the father-son thing was kind of how I wanted this game to work in my own mind. Now, of course, my son, because it's a game I'm working on, rejects it out of hand as being uninteresting. But I love to see that, and we do get a lot of families play. There was you may be aware that we have kind of rules against multi-accounting, and there was one family once where they're kind of like, there were quite a few accounts, and it was like, you sure you're not multi-accounting? A guy wrote in and sent a photo of him with his whole family, and they were all playing the game. It's like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So it's really lovely to see that. That's what we want the kind of game to be, is something that brings people together to have fun.
Yeah,
doesn't get better than that.
It's done, hasn't Anton? Except for when you beat me.
He still hasn't recovered.
My trades aren't so generous now.
Excellent. Yeah. yeah. You've learnt your lesson, right?
I have. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay. Well, thanks so much for chatting to us. Really interesting to get an insight into mobile gaming and your inspirations for cue cards, which I love. It's brilliant, and Anton does too. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Anton. Really enjoyed being on your podcast. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was a good interview.
Yeah, something a little bit different and interesting to understand how kind of you go about creating a mobile game and the importance of the community. Because I think a lot of people take it for granted that these games are free, and they forget there's a whole team of people behind a game, so it's important to have the ads or like some of the things that you can buy within
app itself.
But it's still a very good game. One of our favourite games. Yeah, you should install it.
Yeah, so you can go to cardstheuniverseandeverything.com and find out information there, or look on the Apple Store or the Google Play Store and search for Q Cards or Cards of the Universe and Everything, and it should come up.
And once you've done that and you've loaded into the game, finished the tutorial, there will be a referral code that you can enter.
Yes, Anton really wants you to use his referral code, so we will have that in our show notes and on the website and on Twitter and everywhere, so that you can send him loads of awesome coins or gems or whatever you get for him being a referral, so please do that.
Shall we read ours out here? Okay, mine is W8K-40L-XVK. And shall we share our usernames?
Okay, I am Rick Lepee, R-I-C-L-E-P.
And I am Sir Anton Lepee, SIRANTONLEP.
Yeah, so look out for us, and maybe you will be playing Q Cards against us soon. Now, should we share a few of our favourite cards?
Actually, that's a good thing that I'm not sure we mentioned in the interview, is there's facts on the back of all the cards in the game, and tell you some stuff about it.
I've got the Guernsey Double. Now, this card, actually, we like it because it's from Guernsey. It's also in Anton's first ever pack, as he said in the interview, and it gains 8 permanently when you play it. And when you realise that Guernsey is actually much closer to France than the UK, it becomes less surprising to discover that the island's population only adopted sterling currency in 1921. However, what is surprising is that they weren't using up-to-date French currency either. Until 1834, Guernsey used the French livre, a currency that France itself had abandoned in 1795, rather than adopting the franc like the French or moving to pounds like the British. Guernsey made up its own currency, the Guernsey Double. Doubles were a series of copper coins that were worth 1/80th of a French franc.
Interesting. Now, I'm going to read the back of my card. So I just picked some random ones, and I got fencing. So, it is one of the only 4 sports to have been featured in every modern Olympics. The sport made its debut in the 1896 Games in Athens. In fact, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, the father of the modern Olympic Games, was a fencer. Apparently, the Greek King George I was such an avid fan of fencing that he declared any match that had taken place before his arrival was null and void and had to be replayed in front of him. Although sword fighting as a sport has existed since ancient Egypt, fencing itself is believed to have originated in Spain, with some of the earliest books on the sport written in 1458.
They just fence with bulls there now. I've got the Great Emu War, and this is amazing. A story from history. So between World War I and World War II, a battle to reclaim land from an insurrection of rebellious birds took place in Australia, known as the Great Emu War. This wildlife management operation was launched to tackle the rise of emus running amok in the Campion district. In 1932, the military was sent with machine guns to make short work of the birds, but they underestimated the emu's resilience. According to Major G.P.W. Meredith, who led the human troops, the emus faced machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. By the end of the month, some 2,500 rounds had been fired, but only a couple of hundred emus had been killed. No human casualties were recorded, but the disappointing result saw the project curtailed. Long live emus. Yeah, so the Australian military lost a war to emus.
Okay, now I've picked a paleontology one, quite difficult to say, the Thylacoleo, and also known as the marsupial lion. The Thylacoleo is an extinct genus of carnivorous marsupial that roamed the Australian forests millions of years ago. Although the creature has no relation to the modern lion, it did possess greater similarities to big cats than to marsupials. However, unlike big cats, Thylacoleo had a partially opposable thumb digit that could be used to grip prey animals, climb trees, and turn the pages of its favourite book. But the Thylacoleo had no time for reading. It was too busy ripping apart prey and feeding on their flesh. Eventually, this predator went extinct, not solely because of the climate change, but because humans hunting its prey and changing its ecosystem with fire.
So that was the marsupial lion, which was less successful against humans with spears and things than the emu against humans with machine guns.
We've gone backwards. We've invented backwards.
We have. I've got one more here. This is my last one. This is Nicholas Flamel. You may know him as the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, and you would be right. Harry Potter lore aside, there really was an alchemist called Nicholas Flamel who lived in 14th century Paris. One night, Flamel dreamed an angel brought him a book that contained a hidden secret. Later, that same book was presented to him in real life by an old traveller. Being encoded, it took 21 years for Flamel to decipher the secret, the recipe to make the elixir of life. Did it work? Given that Flamel died in 1418, apparently not. Still, it did make him extraordinarily wealthy, and he used that money to help the poor and support the church. Perhaps the real Philosopher's Stone is the friends he made along the way. I like that card because it goes with my mythic God particle.
Yep. Okay, now I have got the marbled cat, which looks very cute. And it may be similar in size to the domestic cat, but the marbled cat has one thing they haven't got: a great bushy tail. These long tails sometimes even exceed the length of the head and body, helping the marbled cat to balance on tree branches where they spend much of their time. Although it weighs just 3 kilograms, the large teeth and flexible paws make the marbled cat a terrifying predator for small creatures like birds, squirrels, rats, and even lizards and frogs who share its arboreal habitat. Found from sea level up to elevations reaching 3,000 metres, this species of wild cat's distribution lies across northern India, Nepal, and through Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia. So that was the marbled cat. That was us interviewing Paul Mayze about cue cards, and this is us saying goodbye.
Goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at CuriousChildPod, on Instagram at
CuriousChildPod.
You can find us on Facebook.
Search the Curious of a Child.
Yeah, YouTube, and you've got your own YouTube channel, haven't you, Anton?
The Curiosity of Gaming and Curiosity of a Child for our podcast YouTube channel.
That's right, and check out our website at thecuriosityofAchild.com, and you can email us, so we'd love to hear from you at hello@thecuriosityofAchild.com, and we'd also love a review if you enjoyed the show. So just go to Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, and please leave a massive 5-star review.
We would also like a Patreon as well, so if anyone could subscribe to our Patreon, please, and then we will start doing some stuff. You'll get some special rewards, like some bonus content, a couple of shorter episodes, stuff that we couldn't fit into the main episodes.
Yeah, there's stuff already up there, just bonus features and more facts and history and science and videos and photos and all sorts of cool things. So thank you very much, and we will see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
It's not the instrumental ones.
No. Can you stop playing? So I'm now recording.